there's a study. They asked a group of people a year later. They said, what is the name of your realtor? And they could not remember. For real time, I wanted there to be a lot of value for that client to always hold on to it. So no matter if they closed a year later, it's valuable to always go back and have a copy of your survey, a copy of your home inspection, or if you just want to know like who your realtor uses for a hairstylist, or there's all those cool things. This is going to make realtors stand out when you sit down with your clients and say, hey, when you work with me, I provide an app for you to download that you can track your whole real estate transaction.
Reannah Glover, you're here today.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Yes.
Listen, let's just get right into it because I'm super excited to hear all about your app, Real Time, primarily for real estate agents, brokers. You're going to have to talk to me. I'm not an agent. Terra is very educated in the world of real estate.
I wouldn't say very. I am taking real estate classes.
Yeah.
Because it does interest me. I have no interest in being a real estate agent.
It's a weird move. Like,
Yeah, but everybody's in real estate, like in an aspect of it. Like, you know, you'll own properties, own homes. So I think it's great to learn about it or have a license just to have, even if you don't want to go out and help other people. But
you might as well have that knowledge for sure.
yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about, give us an overview of Real Time, just for the people out there.
Okay, so Real Time is a transaction manager for realtors. So it's set up to you manage your whole real estate business in one place, from the moment you meet your client all the way to closing and past that. So it will manage your clients as a little bit of a CRM, and then does a lot when it comes to the transaction. And then alongside of that, it has an app for the client to download that gives your client the ability to track their whole real estate transaction in one place. Wow. So, and it's no extra work to the agent either. So the client portal and the agent portal talk the entire time. So your client now has the ability to go to one place and say, okay, this is where I am in the transaction. This is what this means. And then it gives them reminders of time-sensitive things they need to be doing throughout the transaction. So, for example, it's going to tell you, hey, you're 10 days out. Don't forget to forward your mail. Hey, you're 5 days out. Time to schedule utilities, because we all know there's so much going on when you're buying a house. And even if you've done it multiple times, it's still crazy.
Yeah.
And so I felt like there needed to be one place our clients could go to. And I felt like we could track everything else in our life besides a real estate transaction. And so alongside of that, I was frustrated on the software side for realtors. And so I made something that added value to the realtor and the client.
That's so cool.
Let's talk a little bit about your background, right? You were a real estate agent, right? So give us a little bit of like, what inspired you to create this in the first place?
I actually started in real estate when I was only 19. I cannot recommend that because I was pretty sure I was going to starve at some points, but God is good. And I worked in a great place, and I was around some wonderful people, and I was trained really well and just on systems and being organized and treating your business like a business. Because I think sometimes with realtors, they treat it like a hobby. And so I was taught from the beginning, you know, you treat it right. And I was extremely systematic. So I had checklists and we had paper files. And then, so we worked our business that way in whiteboards. But what happened was like times were changing, and we weren't in the office like we used to be with an assistant sitting at a desk, and you were on the go and everything was becoming paperless. And I felt like I never felt truly organized because I wanted to have that feeling of a paper file again. But it was like you had this software that had this, and then this software you had to go for this. And it was tough. And then if you tried to find a software, it was so hard to use, and I'm pretty tech savvy, and it would just give you more anxiety to try to use it and learn, you know, the flow of it. And so I would go back to spreadsheets and you know, drop boxes and have a million places. And I just felt like, man, I want that feeling where I can open one place and see my business and say, okay, this is what we have under contract. This is what we have, you know, in commissions pending. And then actually open it just like you would a paper file and see your checklist, see the main points of it, and all the information right there. So can
you give me an example, and again, for this novice, right? But like, So essentially, like, can you give us an example of like what real estate agents are currently dealing with? And you've talked a little bit about that, but like just going through the list of like what the exact things that you're having to keep track of.
I always say like you're the time tracker. Like you got to make sure every deadline is not missed, because if you miss it, you're going to have to pull your checkbook out and, you know, and I talk about this sometimes, but like I've made $5,000 mistakes that I promised myself I would never do again. And so that's why I'm such adamant about checklists and everything. So, no, the realtor, they have so much to do, and everybody goes to them, the title company, the lender, the client. They're that one spot that's keeping everything together. And I felt like technology was failing that realtor, and that it was the Wild West when it came to real estate technology. And that's just me, that's just my opinion, but an agent that was a producing agent with boots on the ground, I couldn't find anything that helped me. And so I wanted something that benefited us, that was user-friendly, efficient, and helped us do a better job and make our lives easier.
As an agent, right? What are the sort of tabs or pages that I can kind of go through, like in terms of organization?
Yeah, so the first thing you're going to see is what you have pending. So it's like a hot sheet is what we call it. So you can see, you know, these are the files under contract. This is their dates that they're closing, where they're closing at, and the address of the property. And then you can press on that, go into it for all the things you want. And then the other things it does is it tracks your anniversaries. So I'm a big believer in, I call them home anniversaries. So every year my client purchased a house with me, I would give them a gift on that year anniversary.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I learned that from someone else. And I was actually, when I started in real estate, I was like number 5 of the assistants for one of Midland's top agents. And so being a delivery girl, I was delivering gifts for her, and she did that. And so I have to give her credit, because that was something I learned. But when I'd show up with these like $10 gifts, people were like almost in tears. Like I gave them not much, but the fact that she remembered them, and it was 10 years later, her referral base was huge. And so even in my little 19-year-old dumb mind, I was like, okay, when I get in real estate, I'm going to do this. And so I did, and it was huge for my business. And so whenever I designed real time, I felt that was so important. And I never had a good way of tracking that. And so we actually used index cards with boxes with numbers on them and just moved every year, you know. So it was like in months, and then the January 1 year would go to 2 year, and then 2 year. And so when me and the developers sat down, I said, it's very important that we implement this in, because number one, I think it's so valuable for realtors to have, to where you can open it up and say, okay, you know, Brittany bought a house at 110 Douglas 4 years ago, and it says it right there quick. And you know, okay, these are if you want to give gifts or a card, it does that for you. So you kind of have this main, you know, this kind of middle ground for everything you need, and it helps you just taking away systems you didn't need.
So it sounds like it's purely like from an organizational perspective, from a communication perspective, right? So like talk a little bit about, again, like from the client side, because I don't remember the last time it's been a while since I purchased a home. It's been many years. So I don't remember like I remember how hectic it was.
Yes.
But I remember like in the beginning you were talking about like scheduling your utilities and things like what are some of the other like timely notifications, I guess, that are really important to the client?
Yep. So the client is invited to use real time once you go under contract. So the agent sends an invite, they download it, and like, for example, during their option period, you need to turn in your earnest money and option fee to the title company. And so like, for example, that's their first, you know, to do, which real time has default task in there, but it's completely customizable. So the agent can go in and change whatever she wants. You can also customize it per file, because some files are going to have different tasks that you need your seller to do than another one, or, you know, or a buyer. So I made it to where it's nationwide. So we use different verbiage here than people in Ohio or New York, or if you watch Selling Sunset, you know, it's a different world. So we made it to where everything can be customized. But for example, there's tasks like that. You need to schedule your movers once you come out of your option period because okay, it's time to do that. And then, all the other little things that go in. But it's all set up with defaults. But then everybody has the ability to edit their task list and all of that. So
Is that
it's like sometimes there's different parts of like real estate contracts, I guess, where like there's things that are due within like reasonable time, right? And there's things that are like time is of the essence. So it just kind of keeps you on track with that. Because if you screw up a time is of the essence, like by one day, you're screwed.
Oh, yeah.
When I heard you were building an app, I got instantly excited because I'm like, I'm in the tech world, right? I'm like, people are building apps. Let's I love to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
And really, it's all about, it could be beautiful, it could be fast, it could be efficient, but it's all about solving problems, right?
Yeah.
And addressing a new solution. So, in terms of what we were just talking about with the clients, like, walk me through a normal type of situation without your app, right? To do all these things. Are you having to reach out and go, hey, by the way, like tapping them on the shoulder, you need to sign this?
Yeah, you do. You have to remind them. And then there's also just the aspect too of like, even if you do a great job. So like in my business, we sent reminders, we would print things out. We would do all these things on a timeline, me and my staff, to keep my clients updated. And I wanted to answer their questions before they ever had to ask me. But the problem I ran into is that it's hectic. And I might have printed them out a folder, but that folder is in a box somewhere where they don't know. And they want to know what my recommendations are for a carpet cleaner and a house cleaner. So on the app, the agent has the ability to share all their preferred vendors. So you just go to your app and you're like, man, I wonder who Reannah uses for a yard guy or carpet cleaner. You can go there and see it. And
that saves time on your end.
Yes.
And on the client's end because they're not waiting for you to call back or email them back. That's smart. I like that.
And, there's a study, which I can't find this study again, but I heard it in a seminar and I thought it was so interesting. But they asked a group of people a year later, and they were satisfied clients, if they, or they said, what is the name of your realtor? And they could not remember. Wow. And they were satisfied. And so that was just mind blowing to me. And so I feel like for real time, I wanted there to be a lot of value for that client to always hold on to it. So no matter if they closed a year later, it's valuable to always go back and have a copy of your survey, a copy of your home inspection, or if you just want to know like who your realtor uses for a hairstylist, or there's all those cool things, or an interior designer. Because I know when I moved here and I didn't know a soul, like you want to have some type of resource, or like what's a good nail salon, or and so it's there. And then every time your client goes back to it, your business card is brought back to the forefront of their mind. And I think that tech in real estate has kind of lacked. And I feel like right now this is coming up, and you're going to see this. I'm making a prediction, but you're going to start seeing this. It needed to happen. Clients want transparency. They want to know what's going on. And there's so much to it. And I feel like this is going to make realtors stand out when you sit down with your clients and say, hey, when you work with me, I provide an app for you to download that you can track your whole real estate transaction.
It sounds like a cool selling point, if nothing else, right? Because I think it makes the client feel like, wow, they're tech savvy and up to date, and you know what I mean. They're not going to be just worried about like pencil and paper and all the like sort of old school type of things. So if nothing else, like I think you give yourself a leg up.
Well, plus like it keeps people coming back to that agent using this app, because like say in 15 years we're selling our home, but I can't remember your name. It's like, there's all the information. But if you were also sending me gifts every year or a card, it's like staying in the forefront of their mind. Like,
yes,
which is going to be referral business. And
I really like the aspect of your referrals and sort of like vetted people that you suggest. Like you were saying, like best nail salons and things like that, because a lot of people are, they might be coming from out of town, like, relocating. And that's the first question. That's part of our whole website and podcast is really the best of Midland, right? And so it's like, where can you find the best this and this and this, and schools and stuff like that. So I like that you have all of that in an app. Terra, we might need to make an app. We might be able to hit up Reannah here. Uh-oh. Okay. Save that for another episode. But, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about building an app in the first place. So what really made you decide, I'm going to build an app
Yeah.
and go, I'm going to leave my practice
Yeah.
and just go all in on this app?
Which, man, I've learned so much in the last 2 years, because you know probably a lot more about this for sure than I did 2 years ago. But tech, there's a lot to it. And you can go build an app, you know, for not that much. But we all know, like in our phones, like there's some apps that are great and then there's some that aren't so. So kind of how the journey started was, I have this dear friend, which I'm going to say her name's Lacey, and she's that friend that I feel like we all need, that's like your cheerleader. And I told her about this idea I had like 5 or 6 years ago, that I felt like people should have an app to track their real estate transaction. And we were one night, you know, just BSing, talking, and I told her about it because we were talking about cool apps. But I don't know a single person in tech. I was like, I have no clue. She was like, Reannah, you have got to do that. And I know who you need to talk to. She's a graphic designer, and she went to graphic design school with a gentleman named Carlos, and he works at an amazing firm actually in Fort Worth. And he is in that industry. They are a huge firm, but they do development, you know, with apps. They're a huge advertising firm. And so that's kind of how it started. And I had my first phone call with him and was just like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And he said, yeah. He said, I think you should talk to the company. So they first interview you, see if they think it's a project they want to work on. And then they decided, yes, they wanted to talk to me. So I interviewed with them in Fort Worth, which is really cool because there's not many people in the South that do have the capabilities that's in the United States, because a lot of it's not. So I went and met with them, met with another company up in Pittsburgh, but I love the South, love Texas. And not just that, but they were very strong designers, not just developers.
Right.
And I wanted the app to feel luxurious, user-friendly, and top-notch. I didn't want it to feel like a cheap app that, you know, didn't look good, because it's also for the realtor. That's on you. Like that's representing that realtor. And so I wanted to do a good job. So I actually picked a firm that had very strong designers, and they took my little PowerPoint and my ideas that I had, and they blew it out of the water. I drove many miles back and forth from here to Fort Worth, probably more than what they wanted, because with tech, everybody wants to do a Zoom call.
Right, right.
Now I'm like real good at Zoom calls, but sometimes I'd tell those guys, I'm like, I'm going to come sit with you. Like, I just want to come sit and talk to you about it. Because that's just like, there's a lot that happens. And so we'd lock ourselves in a room and just like hash it out. And I think what makes real time stand out and is different than any of the other softwares today is that it is built with the experience of somebody who actually sold real estate for almost 12 years. You know, my boots were on the ground. I was collecting data when I didn't even know I was doing it, because we were trying to make our systems as good as we could. So we were always evolving. And then I took those systems that we did and those timelines we ran off of, and I put them in an app. So it just came from this little realtor and then a lot of very intelligent, smart people. And we just went back and forth, back and forth. And there were times where these guys would be like, oh, I think we need to add this analytics and this and that, and we're going to have the ability. And I just had to stop them and say, hey, which I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but I always would refer back to the realtor in the white BMW. She doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's the difference in like the software I had used, is it was built for someone in like, who's a developer, who's in tech.
Someone who's super analytical and wants to...
And most realtors... I just realized my button was undone. Shoot. And most realtors, they don't even run spreadsheets. They're not... A lot of them aren't like business... Not saying they're not amazing business people, but they like the interaction with people. They
They don't want to sit behind the computer and run reports and things like that.
They don't want to know what their quarterly total of volume is. They want to know that. They just don't want to sit down and do it. And in their defense, they have a lot to do. Yeah. Like a ton. And so there needed to be something that helped them. And so anyways, it was just like a back and forth between them and me and make it something that we felt like was extremely beneficial for the industry. So
You make a good point, because when we first spoke, and you kind of told me about this app, I think my brain went into marketing brain, and I was asking you a bunch of questions, and you were kind of the same way. I was like, does it have this and this and this and analytics and all these things? And you were like, keep it in the mindset of what an agent wants. I was an agent, right? And so I was like, oh yeah, that's a fantastic point, because you could probably add every bell and whistle you want.
Yeah.
But if no one uses it,
This is the guy who would create spreadsheets based on his Peloton, like rides and stuff. So
yeah, I'd create like custom dashboards. I'd tap into the API and just like give me,
Yeah.
just so I like to see visuals, right?
I do too.
And charts
Yes.
and things like that. So how long did that whole development take?
It took about 2 years, a little
Wow.
less. It actually started kind of small. So really I was more focused on the client app and like, okay, we're going to do a client app. There's going to be a little realtor portal. And then once I got into the development, I realized that the client app is such a great idea. Like that's awesome. And that's a great thing. But if I don't add a lot of value to that realtor's life, they're not going to want to use it. And this is just another software that they need to put on their to-do list to do. And we have so many others we already have to when it comes to compliance and all that. So what we thought was going to be not that big of a project became a really big project because the client portal does a ton. And it was a pretty big beast to conquer. But when you work in it today, it's a realtor can work their whole business in it. And so that's what we set out to do. We just didn't realize in the beginning kind of what it was going to look like.
Sure.
And we thought we'll just have a place where she can upload some stuff. And then it was like, wait a second, what if they can run their whole business through this?
yeah.
And so yeah, it took about 2 years, and you know, our beta testing started in May. We just launched September 5th, so very new.
Oh, brand new. Okay.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
I was shocked to hear that it more or less started from the client side and then morphed into
Yeah.
the agent side. My thought would be like, you know, as a buyer, as a home buyer, I'm only buying so many homes, right, at a time or over, you know, over the span of my life, I guess. But yeah, from the agent side, it's like they're going to be managing probably. I mean, at any given time, how many homes are you or were you selling?
I mean, I had over 20 at
Okay.
a time under contract. But there's some realtors in Midland that could have 40 or 50. I would say an average is probably around 5. And yeah, you might be able to manage, you know, 2 to 4, okay. But once you get past that, it's very hard to manage it and not make mistakes unless you're organized and have really good systems. And so I think that's where real-time steps in and is just going to be able to give the ability to the agent to stay organized on top of her business or on top of his business and not be waking up in the middle of the night stressed. You open your laptop, you check it, make sure your files are up to date, your assistant's in there. You can open it up and say, okay, I'm good. And then you slam the
And then you
laptop
go back
shut.
to sleep.
So you just said your laptop. Sorry, one second.
ahead.
So it's currently a web app, but you are like the iOS and Android is coming soon, right?
Correct, but the iOS and the Android version is for the client. The realtor has a web-based app for her phone, but it is going to be used mostly through your desktop. You use both, and so the mobile version is very easy, you know, works great, but it has the ability to where you log in both places.
Okay.
So yeah, because with it, if I did an iOS, then there's a difference when you.
There's
use
two
it
different
on
apps at that point. Okay, that makes sense. I just want to clarify.
So you can like upload all the like the seller disclosures notice in there, and they can fill it out or print it or whatever.
And you know, as a realtor, like we have a lot of documents that go
Yeah.
in there. So you have the ability in real time to choose if you want that to be visible to your client or not. So when you upload it, you can check that off. It's a little toggle. And then the client has the option to upload their documents too. So if your client has a receipt for a repair they made, they can upload it into real time and then you see it as the realtor also.
Wow.
And that is always there. So real time will never go away. The client will always have it. Even if the realtor quits subscribing to real time, their documents and portal will still be there.
Were you trying to eliminate some of the already existing software that you had to use that was sort of didn't really talk to each other very well, or you were going like, there isn't anything like this?
Well, number one, there was nothing that had a client app.
Okay.
That was not a thing. So that, to my knowledge, was not in the industry at all. But there is other transaction management software, but it didn't work, and I would always revert back to spreadsheets and iCloud folders and Dropbox. And then it was just all over.
Right.
And I actually met with an agent who's like one of the top in Texas last week. And it was interesting seeing his system, but he used paper files and used Post-it notes. Now, he's very good at his job, but he was like, there's just no system that makes sense to me. And that worked for his business. But it was interesting because I feel like it's just easier sometimes because the software was so difficult.
Or you, like you were saying earlier, you might find some software that was written by developers. You know what I mean? It's for developers almost.
Yeah.
That just tried to like figure out what agents wanted instead of it's coming from the agent's mind of what they really want. So that makes a lot of sense.
Need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're just now rolling the app out, I guess, like out of beta and stuff like that. So what's been the response so far?
It's been good, and I feel like when I get to sit down and talk to people about it, because there's a lot to it. It's very simple, but at the same time, it's new, and I feel like with agents, you know, we have our systems, right? And it's hard sometimes when something new comes on, and it's like, whoa, this is not normal. But the more I get in front of people and talk to people and they understand it, it's like, wow, this is huge, and this makes such a huge impact on my life. But I think we might have talked about this, but when I was starting in real estate, Zillow was coming onto the market, and everybody was like, Zillow is taboo, don't use Zillow, you know, it's the devil. And I worked in an office with a bunch of older people, so I'm like in the very back of the meetings, like just being quiet, listening, taking all this in. And I thought, man, like my generation, like we use our phones, and apps weren't even a thing 12 years ago, but we used Safari. You weren't calling your realtor to find out how much this house was. You were going to look on your phone.
Right.
Or the newspaper. You know, that wasn't our generation. So I invested when Zillow was begging realtors to invest and buy leads. And so I didn't have any money. I was poor, you know, just trying to make it as a 19-year-old. But I took $250 and I bought leads. And then I just kept going. And it is truly like, I would say that I would not be anywhere where I am today if it weren't for me doing that. And today Zillow's oversold. It's, you know, it's way saturated. But I think me seeing the ability of like, okay, that's coming. Like that's where we're going. And so I say that just because I feel like this is where technology is going in real estate.
Is this for a certain type of agent? Like what I'm hearing is like your Zillow example. This episode might be titled Zillow is the devil. but it sounds like you're almost trying to hit like the early adopter agent, right? The ones that are still going to use Post-it notes and paper, they're probably still going to use Post-it notes and paper, right? But it sounds like you're looking for like the next generation of agents. Was that accurate?
I think so. I think it's agents who want to feel that they are on top of their business. They're organized. They can open their phone, open their laptop, wherever, and they can see their business in one place. And that want to grow. I mean, I would say it's if you sell 50 houses a year or 5 houses a year, I think it's extremely valuable. And then from another aspect of that, you know, right now with everything that's going on in real estate, we're being questioned harder now than ever before of like, what do you bring to the table? What value do you bring for what you're making? And when I would sit there with my sellers and my buyers, I wanted to sit down and say, this is what I bring to the table. This is what makes me different than other realtors. And so I feel like being able to provide that is a big deal. And sitting there and saying, hey, unlike, you know, or I would say this, what makes me stand out is I will do X, Y, Z, this, that. I'm honest. I'm going to do a good job. And then here's the ability, you know, we're in front of actually, I'm kind of messing this up, but I want to say like, I'm trying to say is offering your clients something that they want and making like a lasting or like an imprint on.
And your competition might not be.
Yeah.
Right. So you
I
have
kind
that
of
value.
butchered that.
Yeah,
but
there's no shortage of real estate agents.
no.
But I think it's probably harder now more than ever to find the good ones that are willing
Yeah.
to do all the things and help out the people.
Yeah. And it just shows that you're staying on top of what's going on and you want to offer what's the best for them and whatever that's being offered,
Yeah.
and so I think that's really cool. And and it's not a lot of money because some softwares are
Okay, so let's
lot.
talk about the money because I looked on the website and I was like, correct me if I'm wrong. It's $75 a month
yes.
for the agent to use it. Mm-hmm. That sounds incredibly inexpensive
Yeah.
for what you get. Like, where did you come up with that sort of number?
So I actually got a lot of pushback from the other owners with me and even the developers of like, hey, there's other softwares on the market right now that are $400 or $500 that don't do what this does. But the reason I chose to be at a price point that I felt like everybody could afford, no matter if you were producing a lot or not producing a ton, but still a good realtor, I felt like that $75 was affordable to anyone. And so I chose that. And it just gives you a lot of bang for your buck.
I
So,
think it's especially like enticing for like the brand new realtor.
yeah.
Like it's not such a large sum of money that they're like, if I don't sell one house, like this is going to bankrupt me.
Yeah.
Or like
exactly.
come out of my budget for other things. So I think it's a great price point.
Yep.
So an agent works for a broker.
Yes.
Correct?
Which a broker can be an agent as well.
So can a broker has multiple agents? Can the broker be using the app and all their agents get to use it underneath that or every individual agent?
So right now it's set up to where every agent would have their own profile.
Okay.
Now the broker can pay for it, but going off of what you're saying, we're actually in development right now to have a team lead profile so that broker can go in and they can look at all their agents.
If they want to
see
dive
files.
into like the analytics and just keeping everybody sort of organized, that
Yeah.
seems like it would be like almost like an umbrella, right? Like
Yes.
Okay.
So we're working on that actually right now.
I like that.
Okay.
They can kind of like keep tabs, make sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to do.
and
Yeah.
using the app, right? Or
Yeah.
to its full potential, right?
Yeah,
like if
exactly.
we're paying for it, we want you to use it. Could it be white labeled?
We talked about that.
Okay.
And it's not off the table. And we've had some people approach us, like, because the software of it, the idea of it, could be used in new construction, home wellness. So we have kind of some stuff that might be coming up that's like all the things to track that you want on your house after your closing. So, for example, like you want to track all the times you service your hot water heater, your AC, all that stuff, what paint colors you have. So there's a lot of different aspects we're kind of working on of real time, but real time is always going to grow and we're brand new, but I set out with a mission to listen to the realtors, like hear them, and I want them to feel that. I want them to know we are listening. And so we're always growing. And like, even with this and rolling it out, I've sat with agents and they said, man, I really wish we could track birthdays. And it's like, And then another agent says that. So I went back to my team and I'm like, can we add birthdays and occasions? Yep. And we worked on that. So it's really cool. And like, with tech, I love tech. I'm like not the conventional tech startup and this little country girl from Bandera, Texas, and but Midland's been so good to me, and anyways, so it just kind of I'm so blessed by it. But I feel like I bring something different to the table, and I'm going to stand by that. And I don't have an exit strategy. I get asked that a lot, but I want to build this, and I want it to be valuable to the industry.
Sure. Well, it's super cool. Like the concept is great. I just kind of look at it like, especially from the broker perspective, like everybody wants like custom, right? They want the and going back to the aspect of like, it keeps your brand top of mind, right? So like if the broker was like, we want it's the real-time app underneath, but it's branded our broker, or like if if Glenda Baker came to you and something, I want the Glenda Baker app. You know what I mean? My brain goes to, great, let's sell it to Glenda Baker.
Yeah. Well,
for a chunk of change every year.
or
For
Sirhan
sure.
or something like that, right? Like,
yeah, and we've talked about that because like these bigger companies that want it just branded for them. So that definitely is something that we're going to be looking into. So, it's like once right now you're so focused on just trying to get it out there, and and I didn't go out and just raise a ton of money for it. I wanted to keep it small with the owners, and so. After a lot of research, and I might change my mind later on, but right now it's like, okay, I felt like the most healthy thing for Real Time was to try to bootstrap it and just get it out there organically and let it grow and say a bunch of prayers over it.
Yeah.
And, and then the more we grow, the more we can adjust and pivot and go from there. So
speaking of Zillow, like, this is where my brain is going to. Like, if you grew it to X number of thousands of users, right? I'll just go with 50,000 users. Okay. Could a Zillow come up to you and go like, "Hey, we want to purchase this app now.
Yeah.
We want to incorporate it into Zillow."
Yeah.
Like, is that something you've thought about, or going like, is there a number in your head that like going like, maybe, all right, maybe we build this thing out?
I have thought about it a lot, and I get asked about it because certain people that, like, when they meet with me and they're going to move their business over, they'll straight up say, like, are you leaving? Like, are you just building this to sell it? Because I don't want to move my business over and then you leave and it's not the same.
Right.
And so something about me is, like I said, I'm a little country girl, love tech, but really my heart and my desire is just I want to have a ranch. I want to go back home to the ranch. I want to raise cattle. And I love to work. And so if it's a good environment and it blesses people that are there, that took chances on me, that work for Real Time, I don't really see the need to sell it. And
Yeah.
and I just feel like everything that gets bought out by Zillow or any big company, it just isn't the same. And, maybe
You don't
one
want to
day,
get Zuckerberged.
yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Because the truth is that if my kids are fed and my family's good, and we can afford what we need to afford, I'm good.
Yeah.
And I think the older I've become, the more that I feel good with that. And so if it's profitable and everybody's good with it. Now, granted, there could be an opportunity that is good for Real Time to sell, and if everybody felt that way, I would do it. But there's a lot of people that took chances on me that came on board for Real Time that are now part of our team, that I don't want to do that to people, and so I always said, if it would be good, when it's good for everybody, I'm good with that. And if it ever needs to change, we can, but I don't have an exit strategy.
I like that.
Do you get nervous that, like, I don't want to be a downer, but I mean, like, I don't know the legal side of this too, in terms of like patents or anything like that. But I mean, do you get nervous that like a Google could come in and go like, "Oh, that's like a cool idea," and then we're going to make one. I'm not saying Google's probably the bad example. That's what I always get worried about. We're bootstrapped, right? And somebody could come in here tomorrow and go like, "Love what you guys are doing. We're going to do that immediately because we can." And bigger because we can. And kind of push out the little guy.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So, okay, so let's go back to the aspect of like the organic growth. So what are you currently doing? Like, what is your plan right now to get this in front of more, outside of being on this wildly successful podcast of ours?
This is going to be my game changer right here.
Yeah. Well, we hope so. But I mean, what are you looking for to get this in front of more agents?
So right now, my strategy is anybody and everybody. And so I'm just hustling. If I can go and talk to one person, great. If I can talk to 100 people, better. And I am just cold calling, reaching out to realtors. I just landed a good deal with a podcast that focuses on realtors, and they have a really loyal, good community. And I cannot tell y'all how many people I reached out to, 0 replies.
Yeah.
And they were one that gave me a chance. I went, drove, met with them. And so I think we're going to be working out a deal. But I think that's where Real Time is really going to do good with communities like that they trust that person and them telling them, hey, this is good. So that's kind of been my strategy. But after we're done with this, I'd love to hear if you think my strategy is way off. Anyways.
No, I think it's super smart. Like sponsor, like podcasts are blowing up. Obviously, like we're
Yeah.
doing this for a reason, right? And sponsoring podcasts, especially when it's ultra targeted,
Yes.
makes total sense, right? Like we're looking for sponsor of a podcast. Want to become a sponsor? Hit me up. But I think that's super smart because you're reaching your audience,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? It's super targeted towards them, which makes a ton of sense. I think there's another realm where, you know, if I were you, I'd be looking on to go as many real estate focused podcasts as.
Yes.
I'd be hitting up Tom Ferry. Or, was that his name, Tom Ferry?
You got to get on Selling Sunset.
Yeah.
I don't think I have the clothes. I'm gonna have to like.
Look, all you need is like
Adjust.
a blazer that just barely covers
true.
your hiney.
Yeah, no pants. Some
Now I gotta
heavy
watch this
metal.
show. What are you
Yes.
guys talking about? All right. This
I
is the one on
never-
Netflix?
This is kind of funny, but I never could watch Selling Sunset because you know when that's what you do every day, you're like the last thing I want to hear about is real estate.
Yeah.
And then recently, I guess because I'm in like retirement, right? Like I'm way too poor to be in retirement, but I'm in retirement, and you know it's like different. And so I started watching it with my mom, and then now I'm like, oh, I kind of love this, but their
It's so
clothes
bad.
are crazy.
Yeah.
And
Could you
wow.
imagine if real estate agents in West Texas walked around dressed like that?
Yeah, no, we're in our own little bubble here. We're a little behind.
No, I think you're doing as well. You're promoting on social media. You know, obviously you probably go to conferences and things like that. I'm
Yes.
sure there's a ton of real estate conferences.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, I bring up Glenda Baker and Tom Ferry and stuff like that just because I've worked with enough real estate agents that I know that those are the sort of the
They
top
are.
dogs in terms of like YouTube and things like that. I was like, you need to find Tom Ferry's publicist, go on his podcast, and probably make a 15 episode series of it. They'll demonstrate the entire app. I've watched
Yeah.
a few of their shows; they're pretty good.
They are, and I think I agree with you. And I just reach out to them, and I know like they might not answer the first time.
Sure.
But the more they hear about it, and maybe someone will talk to them, and so that's why I take every opportunity I can to talk about it. And then I just believe if you keep working from morning till night, something good's gonna come from
Yep.
it.
Of course.
I
it
can't
sounds
wait to
great
tell like all my friends that do real estate.
Oh,
about
thank
it.
you.
Yes, yeah. I mean, yeah, we know tons of people, and it's good that it's like you're not just focused on West Texas; it's nationwide,
Correct.
if
Yep.
nothing else, right? So that's great. So anybody can use it.
Yeah. I feel so blessed by Midland, and moving here from a little town, I could not believe when I got here that you could go and get a waitressing job at any restaurant. Like that was fascinating to me because like growing up,
Like Bandera only has like, well, I haven't been there in more than 10 years, but back then it was like there was 2 restaurants maybe.
yeah, they do have more now.
Yeah.
But like you had to wait until someone like either died or moved out of town to get the waitressing job.
But you could ride your horse to the
Yes.
restaurant
Oh, yeah.
to apply for the job.
You still can. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it
I
there.
love Bandera.
It's so cute.
It is. But when I moved here, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I feel that Midland is such a blessed community because of that. And like if you work hard, the opportunities are there. And it's really unlike many places. And there's a lot of really good people here. And my friend always says this, and I think we need to like trademark it or, you know, whatever. But she says Midland is a hard place to move to, but it's a harder place to leave. And I think that is such a true statement. And so no matter if I stay here or one day I move, I will always feel like Midland was so important in my life, and I wouldn't have what I do today without it. And
Yeah.
so it's a good place.
We'll put everything in the description, but just let people know where they can go to the website, and you know what's the website. So
Yep. So
get
the
you going down there.
website is just therealtimeapp.com, and you can go on there, get a free trial, try it out. And I also want to encourage everybody that we love to hear your feedback. Positive, negative, it's so important to us. And so there's a little button down at the bottom to send feedback. And if you do, we very much appreciate it. So
There's a free trial too.
yes, there's 7-day free trial.
We
So-
might do it. We're
I'm
not gonna-
telling all my friends down in Central Texas
That's
Yep.
right. Oh yeah, you've got a ton.
that
Real estate
are
friends.
in real estate, yeah.
All right, we'll get you some feedback if nothing else.
Yes.
That'd be
Thank
great.
y'all so much. I'm a big fan of you guys.
Thank
so
you.
Oh, we
I
appreciate
was
that.
excited to be here.
Well, again, go to therealtimeapp.com. It's $75 a month to manage your business. Like, it's pretty good. And do the trial and hit up Reannah.
Yes.
Follow on social media.
Yep.
We'll put that in the description below too. And with that, best of luck.
Thank
You're going to
you.
blow up. 2025 is your year.
Yes.
And we'll see you on the next one. Bye.